I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. Welcome to the Let's Get Growing show here, the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. And today is the third Sunday of the month. That's right. Third Sunday of the month means it's monthly gardening book club time. We're going to have our friend Mark Boucher Colbert, Mr. NBC, joining with us live here in just a little bit. It's always great to have a co-host here on the show, especially here for our book club. So we'll be chatting with Mark here in just a few minutes. Also, here real quick too, everybody jump into the chat. Let us know you're here. We'll have our roll call coming up here in just a few minutes where we can give you all a shout out. So definitely jump in and let us know you're here. Let us know what you've got growing on, where you're growing from, all of that good stuff. And again, we'll give you a shout out here in just a few minutes. Also, if you can, definitely drop in and say, give us a thumbs up, give us a like there as well, subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming shows, and definitely share with all of your friends and let them know about the Let's Get Growing show here. Which is basically now your 3-day gardening weekend. That's right. We're now 3-day gardening weekend here in 2026 with our usual shows, as we know, every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. But now we also have our new Monday evening show, The Green Room, with our other co-host, Natalie from the Fresh Princess. So that starts at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for all of you out there. Come and join with us. It's a really fun show. We've been having a great time with this new Green Room show. So definitely come and check out our show there. I will let you know who we've got coming up tomorrow night. And hopefully we'll definitely get the chance to see you there. And also, everybody, big huge shout out to all of you who are watching the replay. Thank you, Team Replay, and thank you for being here. And like our roll call, let us know you were here. Jump into the comments down below and let us know what you got growing on this year. Let us know what's happening in your gardens, or just drop by and say hi. I love to see all of the all the comments and all of that as well too. So thank you so much for taking your time to be with us here on the Let's Get Growing show, as well as all of you who are joining us here live. Definitely drop into the conversation. Like I said, it's roll call coming up here as well. But if you do have any questions or comments or anything like that, drop those into the chat, and we'll definitely try to get those featured on the show here, especially for our guest coming up later on here for our book club. So definitely put in those questions so that we can get those in the conversation today. Also, follow all the links down below in the description. It's book club time, so there's a link down below. You can get a copy of the book we're featuring here today, as well as going and checking out Gary's channel and all of that as well too. So definitely take advantage of those links down below in the description. All right, everybody. Again, great to have you all here with us today. And like I said, we've had a really fun weekend so far. If you didn't get a chance to check out yesterday's show, yesterday we had on with us Christy Wilhelmy from Garden Nerd joined up, and she gave us a great special announcement about a new upcoming book that she's got coming out. That's right, she's got a new our original book anyways was Garden Variety. We featured on our book club a while back ago, but she's got a new book, Bolting to Seed, coming out too, that she announced yesterday on the show. So you'll definitely want to go back and check that out and hear all about this new book she's got coming out. And then you never know, you might just see her here on the book club again to talk about it. And also too, if you didn't get, or I'll I'm sorry. I'm losing track of where I'm going here today. But, anyways, definitely go back and check out yesterday's show if you get a chance for sure to do that. All right, everybody. And great to have you all here. And if you can, like I said, if you didn't get a chance to, drop into our comments and let us know you're here. Like I said, it's time for roll call.
My name is Kevin. Yeah. That is my name. Yeah. They call me Kevin. Yeah. Because that's my name. Roll call.
So, all right. Let's jump into the conversation here and see who we got joining with us today. And of course, we do definitely got to start off by saying hi to our moderator, facilitator, all-around producer, Jay Dixon, joining with us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada, in the lee of Lake Huron. And of course, we got joining with us as well too, and helping out in the chat as well. We've got David from Bowtie Life in the Garden. This is greetings, global gardeners from the Emerald Coast on the panhandle of Florida in the heart of Old Destin. 77 degrees. Wow, that's really nice. It's starting to get really nice like that for us around here. We're going to be nearing around 80 degrees as this heat dome in the West Coast is starting to cover us up this week. So we'll see how things go through all of that. I'm looking at it more as I've mentioned to yesterday and last week, as more of like a real like false summer in a way. You know what I mean? A false summer before we even start spring. So who knows what we got in store for us coming up after that. It can still cool down, and you never know. There could be still a chance of snow and all that sort of stuff. You never know what could happen around here during this time of year. So right on. Thank you, David, for being here today. It's great to have you here with us. Also, we've got joining with us in the chat, I see Sean the Gardener. It's great to see you. Been seeing your name around a lot here in our chat. Really appreciate you taking the time to be in here with us, and good evening to you as well, for sure. And let's see here. We've got Cat's Tiny Wannabe Homestead. Hello, I'll be listening in from 5A in the Colorado Rockies. Right on. Excellent. Getting seedlings started indoors and have planted some kale and spinach in the greenhouse. Excellent. Looks like you got lots of great stuff going there. Also, another big shout out to Shawnee, another moderator for us here today. Keep an eye out again for all sorts of great information and links and everything. Shawnee's really awesome about sharing all of that as well too. So thank you for being here, Shawnee. Great to see you. Also, Robin Gardens joining us from Chicagoland. She says, pat myself on the back. I got my chitted pepper seeds planted in cells, 8 varieties. And let's see here. Put 3 7s potted, 3 14. Oh, okay, I see. And only the Magyar paprika has not germinated. So you got one that's still taking its time. That's how pepper seeds can be, for sure. Some of them can take their time. And let's see here. Make sure we get everybody in here. I see Joe from Muddy Puddles Farm also in the conversation here, joining us from Cornwall, UK. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for staying up and watching the show with us here. And of course, we got our other good friend and moderator, Adam Burley, joining us from Central Point, just right up the road from me here in Southern Oregon. He says he's listening in today while starting tomatoes. Excellent. Get those tomatoes started. And Dusty Flats, great to see you here with us today. It says, woke up to hail, rain, sleet, and now snow in Wisconsin. Thursday, Friday, 45 to 50. Blizzard this Monday. And that's something I was hearing too. And is that while we're going to be facing all this heat wave over here in the West Coast, a lot of the rest of the country is going to be facing some storms and all of that as well too. So again, it's a crazy time of year when it comes to weather. That's for sure. And Shawnee says, happy Sundays. I'm inside now from shoveling wet, heavy snow. Oh my. And we are in a blizzard warning. Spent all day yesterday getting ready, and now ready for the conversation. Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, hopefully everything goes well for all of you who are facing all of the blizzard. I'll be thinking about you while I'm out in the sunshine during my false summer for sure. And then we got Nope in the conversation, joining us from Las Vegas. Cam joining us from Las Vegas. Jealous of you all that have spring times. I'll be 80 today and supposed to reach 100 by the end of the week. Yeah, I know. Boy, we were talking with Sophia from One Arizona Garden yesterday on the show as well. And she's already there sitting in 100 degrees and all of that. So I feel for all of you who live in those kind of desert conditions. Well, it could be something to have to deal with, especially for the growing season for sure. So right on, let's see here. Let's work through here, make sure we're getting everybody in the conversation. Looks like looks like we did. Excellent, everybody. And if you didn't get your shout out yet, or you're joining us a little bit later already, definitely drop into the chat. We'll try to feature all of your shout outs and comments throughout the show. But again, thank you everybody for being here today. Let's go ahead and just jump right into this here. As we know, it is the third Sunday of the month. As I mentioned, it's our monthly gardening book club. That also means that we get our good friend, Mr. NBC, Mark Roche Colbert, live with us today for our In the Garden segment. All right. Let's welcome to the show our good friend, Mark Roche Colbert.
Everybody.
Here he is. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, Portland's going to be sitting at about 64 degrees this week. I saw in the highs, and I was just reflecting on that punishing range we just heard about from blizzard and snow shovel to 100 degrees. I'm like, people are very hardy and resilient. I feel like I'm a pampered. You know, I grew up in New Hampshire, so I do understand shoveling snow and being snowed in, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But I have to say, I'm total softy now. We've had a very mild winter, and I'm going to be enjoying like the sweet spot of spring in the mid to upper 60s this week, while everyone else either roasts or freezes.
Yeah. So it's you're just looking at upper 60s, maybe approaching some 70, maybe. But yeah, so again, you're in the northern part of the state of Oregon. I'm in the southern part of the state of Oregon.
Quite a difference, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for us, it's going to be almost about 10 degrees. I can't believe we're going to be almost 80 degrees this next week. It's just something else.
Hard to believe. But that also we're registering 100-degree temperatures is just. I thought like the Southwest experienced hundreds maybe for the first time in May, but it seems like it's creeping up earlier and earlier now. And now we're in just March, and it could already be 100 degrees. That's just mind blowing.
Yeah. And again, we had kind of a moderately wet winter. It wasn't much to, talk about. We barely got any snow. We had like one day of snow that came down here, melted away just within hours. It was gone. So, there wasn't really much. I mean, I see a little bit up in the higher parts of the hills and all that sort of stuff, but it just makes me worry, as we start to see temperatures rise like this so early, what it's going to be like for us, because here in Southern Oregon and also, up there north and towards Washington, but especially down here in Southern Oregon, Northern California and all of that, we just get, that's a massive fire warning right there,
I know, right?
Thinking about what we could be facing coming up this season.
You and I both know, and you more than I, how fire shapes the outlook and the whole summer season in the West. And when I moved to Oregon in 92, I would say for the first 20 years, we knew there were fires going on. Obviously, there's fires part of the ecology of the Western states, but they never threatened quality of life in Portland. Let's just put it that way. And over the last 10 years, we've had to worry about that. We've seen fires up and down the West Coast all around, and with lots of smoke coming into Portland and creating some, we had about 6 years ago, Labor Day fire that was just astonishing. And literally we were in thick smoke with AQI of about 500. So, you know, it's just
Yeah, I remember that season
remember that?
too because I came up to visit you on the rooftop,
Yeah,
for another visit that we did up there,
yeah.
and usually, you know, from the first visit I did, I was like, "Oh, man, I really wanna get some of these really cool, cityscapes, you know, that you can get from the view of your rooftop garden up there on that building," you know, and there was nothing to be seen, that's how thick the smoke was. I mean, you literally couldn't see buildings just, you know, within a mile away, it was so
Yeah.
thick up there. And we deal with a lot of that as well too, being in this valley. It just fills us up like crazy right here. So yeah, it's just I'm not looking forward to what could possibly. We kind of have a measure, a friend of mine, and everything that we look at because we're in this valley and surrounded by all these hills. And at
Mm,
this point in time of the year, it's all nice and green. You know, you can see all
yeah.
the green everywhere around it, you know. And literally, I think last year by mid-May, it was all brown. So
Wow.
we're like, oh, that's not good because we're not even into summer yet. So now we're even more worried. Like, is it going to be like early May? You know, is it going to be
Oh,
before May before everything really starts drying up like that? So, yeah, not fun to be looking at when it comes to the sort of situations when it comes to fires and things in the West here.
yeah. Anyway, that's a bigger conversation, but it's
Yeah, yeah, believe me, I've had it several times too,
yeah,
being in the thick of things here for sure.
yeah, I know. I mean, but it's
Yeah.
one where the we're feeling the changes, and then we can obviously reflect on that and take what actions we think are helpful to help remediate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, you know, last time we saw you here, Mark, you were taking us around. We had you on a little special show
Oh
uh,
yeah.
to do a little look around at the Northwest Flower and Garden show or festival.
Uh,
Was it?
show I think it's called, but anyway, but it
Yeah,
is a festival.
it is. It's both of them, right?
It's a 5 day. I mean, that is like a 5 day bit of magic
Mhm.
that gets created in the Washington Convention Center in Seattle. And you and I have gone together, and then we've done some things for the show. The years you couldn't be there, but
Yeah.
it's sort of the unofficial start of the garden season for me because it gives that boost of inspiration and the just that networking with all these different vendors. You see different products, you listen to lectures, get ideas, see
Mhm.
demonstration gardens where the plants have been forced in greenhouses so they're further along, as if it's April or May outside. And it's just a heady boost for 5 days. I feel like I'm wandering
Mhm.
around in a dream
Yeah.
and just getting tons of great ideas and new perspectives on things, checking out some great new tools and whatever the innovations are, somebody's going to be there with new products. So that's just awesome. I love that show, and I love the fact that luckily it's close to me so I can access it very easily.
Yeah, yeah, just gotta drive up the I-5 there real quick, and there you are,
Three
just a
hours up
few hours
I-5,
away. There you
boom,
are.
I'm right there. Yeah.
Exactly. So, anything new at the show this year that you've seen from previous years or
Yeah, me. I,
Yes,
I
no, there you go, that's a
I was
perfect
the
no, I love
speaker.
it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I one of my goals has been to give a talk up at the show, and so I submitted some proposals over the years that got rejected, so I had to deal with that, the sting of rejection. But this year, that joyous email came. It's like, you're in. So I was like,
Oh,
yeah.
man, that was I remember when that happened, I was like, "That's so awesome."
Oh, I was overjoyed, and it was a great.
Long overdue though too, because
Whatever.
again, like I said,
It's
I consider you such a wealth of garden knowledge. They've been missing out for years. So luckily they got you this year.
Thank you, Enoch. There's so many great speakers up there. I mean, I pale in comparison to some of the bright lights of gardening
Mm,
that speak. So, um, anyway, it was just an honor to be included. It was great to feature the talk that I gave was 20 years of rooftop gardening at Noble Rock Restaurant
yeah,
in Portland, and so it was wonderful to talk about rooftop gardening. Is its
20 years. Wow.
20 years ago, we started in 2006 when I was finishing my graduate program at the first location of Noble Rot. We've shifted locations, but we've been about 18 years in the current location as Noble Rot.
Yeah.
Um, but it was great to reflect on that whole span and also provide some context for what is rooftop gardening, I know Gary mentions it briefly. I saw one little picture in his book, the book that we're going to do today, Rooftop Gardening. But to me, it's one of the premier urban spaces to do gardening that, you know, in any city, and no matter the density, the rooftop is always available. Now, whether it's safe to do it up there, safe for you, safe for the building, that's another, there's more to be said about that. So I'm not
Yeah.
just encouraging people to go throw lots of soil on top of rooftops. That's, you know, I
Yeah.
have to understand all the safety and context. But rooftop gardening is just such an exciting horizon for me, kind of at the top of the urban plateau, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, you know, for me, the restaurant, the connection with the restaurant, Noble Rot is, if you're ever in Portland, I recommend you go to Noble Rot and eat the
Yeah.
food. It's right on, just on the east side, right sort of in the middle of town on Burnside, which is the divider between north and south Portland. And so, you know, we're on the roof, and Noble Rot is the floor down below. So
Yeah.
literally, it is the shortest food distance you could conceivably go. I can't imagine any other restaurant, except ones that would have a garden on their premises, having that same access to fresh food. And I just think it makes such a difference for the quality of the dishes, and
Mm-hmm.
just that sense of, it gives the restaurant a sense of place. You know, you can say,
Yeah.
look, this is from our rooftop garden. There's a real live connection between the growing and the eating. So I love it. It's just a great experience, a real privilege to be up there. And
Yeah, yeah. Not only that, but for me, this was like my first real endeavor into going and interviewing and checking out and doing videos on a project, or you know, that sort of thing, that which was kind of one of my original ideas as I started my channel and everything. And so if folks want to check out, I'm sure that we can get a link, Jay or someone could get a link in to our rooftop, my first rooftop. Yeah, I look back on, I was actually showing this actual video not too long ago to my daughter, kind of showing her the rooftop and all of that. And just looking back at those old videos. So yeah, you got to put with, it's me in my very first year of ever doing videos and all that, and you could definitely tell for sure. But it was such a wonderful experience to get up there and to get to meet you. So it was a video where I got to meet you, and you took us on a little tour of the rooftop and all of that too. So if you're all interested in checking out this just really amazing rooftop garden at Noble Rot, you can go check out that video and check out all that.
Enoch, I have to interrupt you and tell the backstory of that, because
okay.
you know, as I was talking about my own determination in submitting a proposal to the Flower Garden,
Right. Yep.
you showed incredible determination, because Enoch you had written to the people who run the restaurant about this, about getting a tour of the rooftop, and they submitted it to me, and I'm like, who's this guy? No, just tell him no. I don't, you know, not that I'm that kind
Yeah,
of
it's like, I mean, I literally had a channel of like maybe 150 people or something, and barely any videos I'd made at all,
it's like,
right?
okay,
You know,
this is
I
an
was just
unknown,
getting started.
this is some unknown name. I don't know. You know, no, we're not interested. Whatever. I brushed it off, and I deeply, I feel, I regret that. But your persistence was such that you just came up there, and on a particular day, and you were like, hey, I happen to be in town. Could I just have a look at the roof? And they're like, oh, our gardener happens to be up there watering. So you came
Yeah.
up, and then once you were on the spot, I'm like, all right, this guy seems good enough. Let's just go. Let's just do this. So I think I was in the middle of watering. I'm like, all right, I got to do my job. So you just follow me around and we'll talk.
Right,
And that's how it all. So my
Yeah.
hats off to you for your persistence. You made it happen.
Right. And here we are all these years later, having done so many things. A great
Oh my God, I know,
friendship
right?
was, you know, spawned right there on the rooftop of that garden. And so, yeah, I always look back on that. That was kind of fun, in the sense of, again, being determined to do things. And I think that's how we get a lot of things done around here, you know, as far as even this show and all that sort of stuff, is working with a little bit of determination. But
well, it reminds me of those Zen stories you hear about the person who wants to be a Zen monk and goes to the monastery and knocks on the door, and you know, the guy answers, and it'll be something like, oh no, there's no monastery here, you know, trying to get the guy to go away. And just leave them outside for 3 days, and the one who sticks around for day 4 finally gets admitted in to do the. You
Yeah.
cannot take no for an answer in life. You have to be persistent. If it's in your
Hmm.
heart, just go for it. You have
That's right.
by any means necessary, right?
Yeah, that's right. Again, it's you create a vision for something and you have an idea for how you want to do it and that sort of thing. You got to be determined to make that happen and not let certain things get in the way. Some people might nudge you away a little bit, but sometimes a little push, a little nudging back, isn't going to be a negative thing in a sense. Some people worry like, oh, what if I approach them again, or if I just show up, is this going to cause any problems? And no, really it's one of those things that just shows, oh, this guy really means to get this done. So,
Yeah,
if he's going to come here and show this off and what we're doing, then let's go ahead and do it. Right.
exactly. So cheers to you, Enoch.
Right on. So tell us just a little bit more about some of the things that you saw at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show.
Well, there's always interesting new products. One company that I don't have it on hand. I think it's called Ocean Grow. I'd have to look that up a little bit more. They're doing a line of kelp pots. And this is interesting because there's been a long line of biodegradable pots, and I've used peat pots and coconut fiber pots. And one thing I really have noticed is they don't break down very easily. The peat pots can be really bad, in terms of like roots have a hard time perforating that. The coconut pots are like they last for years under the soil. I've actually started snipping some of those to make more spaces for the roots to get out, because I do a lot of tomatoes in the coconut pots. So the claim with these seaweed-based pots is that they completely biodegrade in the soil rapidly.
Yeah.
And that seems like a little bit of an innovation. It's just these things like people trying to solve problems that are out there in the garden world and provide solutions. Now, I will say, maybe because they're just getting going, the pots are expensive. So I bought a small amount. I'm just going to try them out and see. And hopefully as time goes on and they get their production systems up, maybe the price will come down a little bit. But I'm eager to try that. What else? I always go around looking for books. Of course, I'm a total book. So looking for books. There's always there's a bookstore down below where the speakers are at. And so it's fun to cruise that. And, you can, if you hear a certain speaker and they have a book, you can often get their book signed personally by them. One of the really rewarding things this year was talking to authors that we've interviewed, and because they had that personal connection, like I think I mentioned to you, I had a wonderful conversation with Jennifer Jewell, who hosts the Cultivating Place podcast for NPR. And she's written a great book on seeds that we did called What We Sow, I think. What We Sow. I'm just looked at it on my shelf to make sure. And so it was just great fun to see her there and have a few minutes to talk with her, to kind of chat informally. There's these display gardens that really just rock my world. And, I started as a vegetable farmer and gardener, and that's all I was interested in at first. And now I've really expanded to all kinds of landscaping and flowers and stuff. I have, much more appreciation. So to see these folks put together these amazing things literally from the ground up, and it's all a ruse in a way. I mean, they create these mounds and they're all made out of pallets and the sawdust, but then they put mulch over it. They put potted plants in there that have been forced, and it all of a sudden now, instead of seeing pallets and sawdust, you're seeing like a field of hyacinth and white birch trees and huge fountains. And the inspiration is just amazing. I take literally hundreds of photos, and then over the years, stuff gets filed away, and then it'll percolate up later, maybe 5, even 10 years later. Sometimes I'm working off of ideas that I got from the garden show. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a great show, man. I just hope I'm gonna be able to get back and get up and see it this next year. And again, if you ever have the chance to travel out to Seattle for this show, it's literally a must if you got to see it. One of the best gardening shows you're gonna see, and tons, like you said, tons that you're gonna get out of it for sure.
Oh yeah, just even okay, right? I haven't even mentioned the speakers. So in the downstairs, the cavernous downstairs of the Washington Convention Center, this year they opened up a fourth room. So there's 4 rooms over the course of 5 days. They start talks every day at about 9 and they end at about 6 p.m. Every room has a talk by some expert on gardening, on some aspect of gardening, go simultaneously for 5 days. So, and to get into this thing for 5 days is like $80 or something. So you could get a literally like master's level education in gardening just by going and sitting in all those seminars as much as as your butt could handle.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's just you can do everything from like, let's learn how to prune clematis to let's talk about perennial vegetables to let's look at the great gardens of Italy and Spain.
Yeah.
It's the whole range of gardening experience. And these people are bringing their A game with these talks. So, there's no way to describe it. You just must go experience it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely get out if you get a chance. Check out the Seattle Flower and Garden Show. Come this next year. You might just meet Mark and I as well together. So definitely do that for sure.
The name is actually Northwest Flower and Garden. So NWFG or F&G. You can follow them on Instagram and Facebook and such too.
Yeah. I think that's where I get it mixed up. Is it the S or the F at the end? But yeah,
I guess
for show or festival.
Northwest NWFGS, Northwest Flower Garden Show. There we go.
All right, there we go. Check it out. Come check us out maybe next year as well too.
Yeah, we have a dream to be up there broadcasting live, right, Enoch?
That's right. I know. That's hopefully they'll give us that email that you got right this year and say, yes, this sounds like a great idea. And I think one way or another, though, we'll go there and we'll do some shows for sure. That's
shout out to a sugar daddy. If anybody wants to sponsor us, we could.
There you go. Right? Exactly.
Yeah, we'd love to have a sugar daddy to get us up to the show. So, or sugar mama. Sure. Either way, we don't care. We're non-discriminating in that sense.
That's for sure. Absolutely. So yeah, definitely. We got links for all that stuff down below too. You just let us know for sure. All right. Well, I know we got to get moving on today. So let's go ahead and take a real quick break. We'll be right back to get right into this book club.
See you in a minute.
Ivory Organic was founded on the gardening concept of whitewashing, simply lightening your plants to better tolerate weather extremes, transplant shock, and so much more. Such a valuable gardening practice that farmers have been doing it since BC times. However, in recent years, most research has been caring for plants and trees using latex and tar-based products which are designed to last 100 years but fall off your plants within 1 to 2 years as your plants grow, contaminating your garden soil indefinitely. Available in colors white or more natural looking colors such as brown, green, gray, and grayish. Ivory Organic has 2 general categories of whitewash products. The 3-in-1 Plant Guard, which includes 7 natural oils including castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint, which offer insect and rodent repellent protection, and the whitewash oil-free formula. Both products also have diatomaceous earth in the base ingredients, which naturally offer some insect repellent protection too. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics and wishing you all happy gardening.
All right. Here we are. Back again. Definitely. Let's go ahead real quick. Let's go ahead and get this started. It's time for the monthly gardening book club. All right. So we got a really great book for you all this month for sure. We're featuring Gary Pilarchik and actually, and I got to get the name right, Chiara Demore as well too. We'll have to talk about that. But growing an edible landscape here. Yeah. What a great book, Mark, huh?
Oh my God, this is a great book. I mean, this topic is near and dear to my heart, and I think we're gonna people who are here will soon see that Gary's got a big vision for transforming how we live and how how homeowners live. So I'm looking forward to diving right into it and getting this sense of like how we can get our food. Like I was saying about the Noble Rot, how can we bring our food that much closer to our living? How do we do that?
Yeah. Excellent. Yep, definitely. And I knew this one was going to be right up the alley for you as well too. So this is great that we were able to get Gary to come back with us because he was on not too long ago. We had him on here on the show, but it's just really great to have him back here with us for the monthly gardening book club. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Gary to the show. Here we go. Gary, there we are.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, great to have you back with us. Oh, let me get, I think we got to mute.
All right, I'm muted. So hello. And it's great to be back.
Absolutely. Great. So wonderful to have you back here. We've had you on the show again for like some really great interviews, talking about all sorts of gardening and all of that, but it's really great to have you here to talk about one of your books finally too. Yes. So I'll also mention too that if you want, everybody can go check out, Gary's also got another book called The Modern Homestead Garden as well too. So I got both of these books here, but we're here to talk about growing an edible landscape. And so before we really do dig into this book, we're going to get all into this and everything, but let's go ahead and give you a minute here, Gary, to go ahead and just in case, I can't imagine there's anybody who hasn't met or seen one of Gary's videos out there, but in case anybody hasn't met you before, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your channel, and all of that as well.
Appreciate it. So for a career, I was a mental health therapist. To relax and taught by my grandfather in second grade how to grow food. So about 14 years ago, I decided, hey, let me try out making YouTube videos. And I just enjoyed it. So it's been maybe a 14-year career doing YouTube. So I have the main channel, The Rusted Garden, and it's just really geared to teach people how to grow food. Try to keep it simple, nothing too fancy. People have been growing gardens for thousands of years, and not much has really changed,
Yeah.
So that's really my hope, is just to help people kind of, as you guys were talking about earlier, is to take the food chain partially back into their backyard. I'm not talking about going off grid or, forget grocery stores, but just go ahead and start doing more in your own space, because I think people forgot how to grow food.
I agree. Absolutely. And it's why it's great to have folks like yourself out doing the sort of thing that you do with your videos and everything. Because, for me, when I was first getting started growing my own food in my spaces and everything, I was watching as many of your videos as I could consume, for sure, to learn so much and everything. And again, too, I like the idea as well, too, as you talked about making it easily accessible for everybody. And one of the things you've done really well, and even throughout this book, I noticed too, is helping people see ways that they can do this on a budget even, right? The gardening really doesn't have to cost all of it so much, right?
It can be very expensive. Potentially. And brand new gardeners, that's a barrier. Like when you go to the big box stores and you see 14 kinds of fertilizer for peppers, tomatoes, plant tone, garden tone, blooming, and then people think they have to buy all that. You don't. You just, in my opinion, just need one bag of a good organic fertilizer. But there are a lot of barriers that overwhelm people to not get started, and cost can be one of them. I mean, metal raised beds, beautiful. Wooden beds, beautiful. But you can just start right in the earth and, a water soluble fertilizer and get growing and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really important to me, as I'm a real budget person. I wouldn't have been able to grow a garden if it wasn't budget friendly. And that was really the big thing for me, was discovering that, for sure.
And then eventually, once you do grow, you start saving, because you know, we grow a lot of our own food at home, but then we buy some at our local organic grocer, and I'm just always astonished by how much food costs. So, you know, with every bundle of kale, with every head of lettuce, you start saving money, and then, you know, you could divert that back to the garden to start to upgrade, right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, and that's the truth. Like you always see those things, you know, those memes or something. Planted a tomato plant, final cost
Yes.
$200. And, you know, there's humor in that maybe. But the
I
first
know. I'm the
year
same way.
cost,
I feel the same about those same ones. Oh,
yeah. So the first year cost, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more. But then you start dividing out over the years, the cost drops significantly. Then you get better at it. You know, you're growing even more in that smaller
Yep.
footprint. You've got all the infrastructure, and then the savings really starts rolling in, especially if you're hitting like peppers and tomatoes, things that might be a little bit more pricey, versus maybe carrots, because they're kind of cheap for, you know, 3-pound bag. So you can kind of plan out, like, what do I want to grow that's more expensive? What do I want to grow that I love? And what can kind of bring my budget down? And you just start that way.
Yeah. Gary, one of the things that endeared me to this book is right away, the gloves are off and you're duking it out with the American front lawn. So tell us about that. Tell us about, you know, what is this argument you have with the front lawn, and why should people be, you know, at sort of like looking at changing out or replacing or minimizing their front lawn? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So the front lawn, I mean, the short version is it was a sign of like royalty and wealth. You had this lawn and you had the money to take care of it, going back centuries. And then come, you know, the housing boom and stuff early in the 1900s, whatever, middle of the 1900s. The idea was everybody gets a lawn, everybody gets non-edible plants. And we were just kind of sold that into our subconscious, that meant something. But, you know, I wish you go back in time, and instead of doing that, they planted blueberry bushes for you and they put in garden beds for you in a box. I mean, what a great place the world would be if we did that. But the lawns just kind of crept in, and then it just stayed as something everybody wanted. And then you would see, you know, you see movies and stuff where people are, you know, competing over lawns when you have neighbors and stuff like that, and kind of all the fun stuff. But a lawn does zero for the environment. You know, it ultimately hurts the environment with the use of chemicals that aren't just needed. My lawn on my 2 acres is totally sort of naturalized, but I cut it short. So it looks like a green lawn, but it's loaded with clover and wildflowers, and it changes color over the seasons. That's all you really need. It also, a lawn doesn't really support any kind of beneficial insects or any kind of life. I mean, it's a monocrop. So if you can reduce your lawn to more things that improve the environment, be it for pollinators, for yourself, for food, for the dreaded squirrels that attack my garden, anything but lawn is good. But I just want to be clear, like, some lawn is great. You know, you got kids soccer, you're raising kids, you want a space for them to play. That's great. I'm not talking about removing it all, but just think about it in a different way and decrease the space that you have, and get rid of those bushes that don't do anything. You know, put in something edible.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a follow-up on that, which will allow you to introduce your co-author of this book, because obviously it's something you wrote with somebody else. I noticed that your co-author has founded the Community Ecology Institute, and a lot of what you talk about in this book is the ecological and the social elements of growing your own food, or changing your landscape, making it more edible, or like you were saying, take out the lawn, put in more beneficials for pollinators. So maybe introduce your co-author and talk about this ecological piece of the edible landscaping that you guys are both bringing to this.
Yeah, it's Chiara Diamora, and she founded Community Ecology Institute. And I'm a board member there for the last 5 years and volunteered before that. When COVID came out, I was actually retired from my mental health job as a therapist, and blessed enough that YouTube, you know, allows me to, you know, reach the entire world, meet wonderful gardeners, and make a living off of it. So at that point, I was like, I need to find coworkers. So I volunteered at Freetown Farm. I met Chiara. She's brilliant. She brings sort of the science to what this book is. That's her piece in there. plus she loves nature. And the whole background to CEI was to connect communities with nature. That's the short version. And we have really lost touch with that. Kids don't know where food comes from. Like and it's almost so sad, it's funny, but you ask kids, where does food come from? Grocery store. Where do radishes grow? On a tree? Simple things that we can teach kids about how to grow food and how to interact with nature. The other thing, it's just good for your mental health. I mean, that's my background with being a mental health therapist, is going outside and digging in the dirt and losing your five senses in nature and just being present with the sounds of the birds, the wind blowing, the earth, watching the worms. Sculpting is what I call it. You're sculpting kind of a blank canvas. Is good for your body on all kinds of different levels. And that's kind of, the spirit of Community Ecology Institute, is connecting people to nature, jived well with what I was interested in. And 2 years into that relationship, I was like, they want me to write another book. I'd like to do it with you. And we set it up as you see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And, I'll just kind of a good segue to what I wanted to do. Just read here about, you have a little part here at the beginning about this book. And you say, we believe everyone can become an artist who connects with the land outside their door to create beautiful, abundant, edible landscapes. Your lawn and unused outdoor spaces are a blank canvas that can be transformed. Imagine vegetable gardens, herb gardens, fruit trees, berry brambles, edible flowers, and gathering spaces. A living ecosystem. Growing an edible landscape is about becoming that artist and looking at outdoor spaces through a new, creative, healthful lens. You can use this fresh perspective to transform a space into something that brings personal satisfaction and happiness, and of course grows delicious food. Challenge the old idea that most residential outdoor spaces must be uniform, close-cut green grass punctuated by a few uninspired shrubs, and ask yourself this question: why did I choose grass lawns and non-edible plants? The answer the answer is, very often, I didn't.
Yeah.
They are just put there when homes are built, and we inherit and maintain them by default because it is the norm. Now, maybe, can you kind of do that? Maybe expand on that just a little bit. There was one other thing that you had said in here, and I'm not sure where exactly, but you or Kiara mentioned that to be thinking of your outdoor spaces like you do rooms, right? Like rooms of your house, right? There, you got different types of rooms, and you got different ideas and designs and thoughts for different parts of your house. Maybe you can expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, we really wanted an introduction, like you just read. Obviously, we put it in the book because we do believe the individual can find a hobby, can build self-esteem, can be an artist.
Yeah.
And we are just sold, hey, here's your lawn and trees, go and bushes, take care of them, and we don't think, and we just do it for decades. I mean, it's, crazy in a sense when you really think about it. The edible rooms, I got a chance years back when I was just starting to meet P. Allen Smith and go to his property. And he's actually talked about his property when he was doing tours with a bunch of us, social media people, about how he sees them as extensions of the rooms in his house. And I kind of took that to heart. And that's how I kind of built my garden. You go out the back door, and then you're into a little space there. You walk into the garden. Left part of the garden is the fruit room. The right part of the garden is the vegetable room. You go over out to the left, that's where to the right, that's where my orchard is. And that's the fruit tree room. And kind of broke up the property into, as if you're walking, there's no hallways or even, things to walk through, but it's like you're walking into different rooms throughout the property. And that's kind of how I envision things. And it helps me kind of plan out, what do I want to, grow, and how do I want the property to look like? Yeah. And it's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, that's cool. Let me ask you, you're a designer, and you talked about barriers, that may be overwhelming people. I'm seeing two trends in this book. One is like on 46 and 47, you have some really beautiful designs that somebody did as part of a permaculture class. So it's kind of a whole system look at a whole property. You know, it's all beautifully, somebody has some good artistic ability to do that, and it's all rendered really nicely. So that's one aspect of design. And then the other aspect of design that you mentioned in the book is just start small and kind of chunk it out, you know, start with just one area and kind of grow from there. Talk to us about like how those two things interact, like the ability to see the whole, maybe a whole vision that you're carrying for the space versus like, I just have to start in one little place. I can't get too overwhelmed with this whole thing.
Yes. So the final outcome or my final vision, I have an idea and people have an idea. But if you start with how the big vision should look, you're going to get caught in all the minutia of getting there. Let that just develop over time, because we're going to keep learning. You talked about all those, different, I don't know why I just forgot the word, but the presentations at the flower show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be going to these places and you're going to be learning more. So your bigger vision might change. So what I always recommend is start with what's there. Look at the beds that are up against the southern part of your house that have boxwoods or something, and yank them out. Start there, look forward right at them, look at what you accomplished, build that up. Don't look behind you of what you have to do more of and get to it. And then just kind of step back, and then build the rooms onto your space, like I was talking. I mean, you could have a deck space, you could have a container space, you could have wildflowers and stuff like that. But start with what's there and transform those beds that are already present. And then I go and look at all the open space, like where's all the lawn, and pay attention to the sun, because you definitely always want a good 6-8 hours minimum. And once you see the open space, just pick one. This is what I want. I want a loose kind of space for a herb garden that I can harvest from, but it's also going to feed predatory insects. And you just build it that way. And I do recommend too, don't be organized. I'm not that organized, but I keep myself motivated and going, so I get stuff done. But you don't have to have things so planned out that it overwhelms you. Pick something, complete it, enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're planning the important things, like where is the sun, for example. You want to make sure that's dialed down and has careful observation.
Right.
And then start small. You may be holding a bigger vision, but you're allowing it to evolve as you learn and grow, and as you see the success or the results, then you move forward with that. That seems like a great way for people to enter this field of edible landscaping.
Yeah, and you're definitely going to learn and grow internally, so the changes are going to happen. Part of that would be too is what's your garden space? Do you need a fence? Do you have deer? What comes in? So you are critically thinking through each part, but you're not looking at the 50 parts you have to do all at once, and it distracts you from getting it done. You're like just focusing, vegetable garden, fruit trees, space along the back of my house that has nothing growing but could grow something, and you just work that way.
And what I just to clarify for our listening audience, what I think I heard you say, and to give people permission to do this, is you have permission to dig out the things you don't want and replace them, correct?
Yeah, yank them out. Yeah, get rid of them. Like, ask yourself, but that's
perfect. Which is kind of real quick here, though. It was really kind of perfect segue here to David's question, actually. It says, what are some easy plant swaps where people can replace ornamental plants with edible ones without losing beauty in their landscape, right?
Okay, right.
Yeah, so I like, and it's going to vary because, blueberries don't go everywhere. But wherever you have shrubs, a lot of times you can put in high bush blueberries. Which lose leaves like the ornamentals. They have really nice color come fall, and then come spring, the green comes back. So they almost mimic a lot of your ornamentals that don't do anything. And I can see having flower ornamentals. That's one thing, having flowers, but just a leaf ornamental that doesn't do anything. Definitely try putting in blueberries. They make a huge difference. Instead of using ivies or things that can become invasive, strawberries make an amazing ground cover, and they green up and they grow. They last to, they survive very cold winters. I think even below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I'd have to check my notes, but they last and they come back and they can feed you. So you're swapping out things that don't necessarily flower, in my opinion. They just have green leaf color. Put in something you can eat. And blueberries and strawberries is a great way to start.
Yeah, nice. That's a great question. Thanks. Because a lot of people, I think there's an anxiety when you're doing edible landscaping, maybe that has been built up over the keeping up with the Joneses thing that you mentioned, in terms of our lawns and our image and what it says of us. Michael Pollan, actually, I'm remembering a chapter in one of his books on gardening, Second Nature, where he talks about his father being the scourge of Long Island because he wouldn't mow his lawn, and people start mowing messages in the lawn or something. But anyway, this idea, there's an anxiety of like, well, if I make my yard edible, isn't it going to be scruffy? Isn't it going to be, am I going to be looked down on? Is my property going to lose value? So what do you say to all that?
So, I say one, that's not true. And
yeah.
Good. I was hoping you were going to say that.
Definitely not true. I marked a few places on here, but if you look through the book, you're going to see images of my yard mid-spring, and it doesn't look chaotic. Like I said, I've let my lawn naturalize. I just cut it short.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Yeah.
You don't want to, there's a difference between a planned wild flower garden and somebody just lets things go wild and doesn't do anything. Like that's a different, you're still the artist and the creator. So you're managing the food that you're bringing in, you're managing in the wildflowers, and you're putting it in a way that looks good. That's the fear. Because I don't, here in Maryland anyway, maybe 2 years ago, the homeowners associations would not let you have gardens for the fear that you just described.
Right.
They finally lost some of their power here in Maryland. So I do always recommend homeowners fight their HOAs to get edible food and gardens into their space. It's a crime that it's not allowed in most places. But you can do it in a way that it looks beautiful, and that's really the artist in each gardener gets to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of the way to sneak it in there, right? Kind of bypass some of their rules and everything and sneak some things in and grow some things throughout your landscape, especially for those who live in HOAs. Because I hear that all the time from folks. It's like, oh man, I wish I could do something. I live in an HOA and they just won't allow me to. But there's ways to kind of work around that, because you can make spaces beautiful, really nice, when it comes to even growing food.
See, when maybe 4 years ago with Community Ecology Institute, I helped them create a program called Nourishing Gardens. And we were going to schools, and schools have tons of wasted land. I mean, they could have gardens and feed their kids healthy food, but that's a whole other show. But when we were talking about bringing in fruit trees and bringing in edible food, the mindset of so many people is, oh, that's going to be ugly and harmful. For instance, if we said, let's bring in apple trees, getting through the PTA and getting through, and this is legit in multiple schools, is people bring up questions like, well, if the apples fall on the ground and a kid picks it up and throws it at each other, are they going to hurt each other? What if there's bees coming and it's just this fear. Meanwhile, why they're saying this, along the edges of the school are these big river rocks that have been there for 10, 20 years. Kids aren't picking them up and bashing each other over the head. But the fear of having apples fall to the ground and get thrown make people put on the brakes and say, no, we don't want to do this. And we kind of have to break through that in society.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, we're afraid that a kid's going to get stung by a bee or a wasp, but in the meantime, we're spraying tons of Roundup to keep down the weeds and do all the other kind of terrible stuff that's actually going to give them cancer at some point down the line. But it's like, oh, but they can't get stung by a wasp, believe me.
It really is there. And it's changing. Like I see a big change over the last 10 years with the movement of food and growing and gardening and just beginning to change, how we approach things. So, I mean, when I was looking through here on page 16, I don't know if you could show a picture of it, but it's a community with just lawns. And that's in the beginning of the book. Imagine in that picture, I mean, I can put it up here. Yeah. Imagine if that was filled with fruit trees and gardens, that community would have something to talk with each other about. They would have activities to share with each other.
Yes.
This is something I'm more interested in doing in the future, is getting communities to grow gardens, not individually, but as a street or a block, share food. But imagine if that space was filled with fruit trees and gardens, they could feed themselves a good amount of food as a community, which we pretty much lost, I think, in America in a lot of places, is the sense of community. People don't know their neighbors. They don't go out. They don't go and talk. Gardening is a great way to bring that back.
Yeah, I don't want to push back too much on the idea of self-sustainability, which is a real, key word throughout the gardening community and all of that. But I found through many interviews and talking to so many different gardeners that it's almost, I don't know, use the word myth, but in a sense, because really sustainability is through community. We can grow as much as we want and do certain things, but we're always going to need somebody, some trade or some connection with someone else who has different things and all of that too. So I think there's just a lot to be said within that point that you're making, Gary, about, communities coming together to be able to create, these gardens and ways to feed each other, and again too, bringing it back down to cost of everything. Things are just really, really expensive. It really is. Some of these sort of things, where things were happening back in COVID, there was a lot of people who kind of came to the gardening and growing space and all of that. And same now, I see, coming up here as we're starting to see higher and higher food costs and all of that sort of stuff, that people are being driven to the idea of growing gardens, but centering that within your community is really, really important, isn't it?
I think so. And I think you said it really well. I mean, you can become more self-reliant as an individual in your household. You can become more self-reliant as a community. And as I was saying earlier, it's not about replacing big grocery stores or whatever. They still are needed. But we've also lost the small farmer in your community that you could get to know them and buy food there, and you can buy meats there, and you can buy eggs there. We've lost the local butcher. And then we also, I mean, again, I can step up on my soapbox, but we don't know the chicken that comes from so far away, the shrimp, you don't know where it really was harvested from. You don't need that. You need the local people that do parts of that. And, that builds a community, and you still have, the bigger companies and stuff. You're always going to need that in some capacity. But in my opinion, just not as big as it's gotten now. Like, we've really lost our community, for the most part, I think.
This is something that's on my mind a lot is, as homeowners, we may have a special opportunity to grow our own food and have the privilege of having some land that's under our control. But there's a lot of people, either apartment dwellers or folks who are, homeless at the time, who have no opportunity. And I'm always interested in what's going on that's interesting to you in the public realm. And I'm going to mention one example from our area. There's a food forest in Seattle, what I believe is the largest urban food forest that is free and open to the public. And you mentioned food forest in your book. That's kind of what brought it up. The Beacon Food Forest up in Seattle. It's been going for, I think about 10 or more years.
Oh yeah, Beacon Hill.
And it is, I've been up there. It's cool. And I haven't been up there lately, so I'm eager to go back up. But anybody can wander through there and gather food from whatever's blooming at the time. And I just find that that is a wonderful concept. So maybe you could speak a little bit more to the idea of a food forest, and also maybe, with what's going on at the farm you're associated with. What's the name of the farm again? Freetown Farm.
Freetown Farm.
Yeah, it seems like you're very engaged with this idea of community and feeding the community through these farms. So let's talk about that for a bit.
And I'll just add real quick to that, maybe throw in the concept of layering as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, the idea you described is foreign, I think, a lot of society.
Yeah.
And when you grow the food, people are hesitant to go and pick it because they're fearful that it's toxic or poisoned or has bugs or is dirty inside.
Right.
They would rather go into a store that stuff is pre-washed and whatever and not know where it comes from. So you are sort of breaking through that to say, hey, anybody can come here. And maybe in the example you gave me, people may tend it, may weed it, they may chip in somewhere, or maybe it's just a community piece. It's a beautiful idea that's undervalued, and it's strange. If we were doing it more, you would see strips of land filled with all kinds of different things that people could just go and eat, which, you know, is almost crazy on the one hand to think that could happen, but also crazy on the other hand to think that we don't do it. So we are moving in that direction. Part of what Freetown Farm does is we were lucky enough to get 6 acres. So we have different parts of the land where we teach people how to grow in different levels and different ways. Very similar to my channel. Like my garden's a bit chaotic because it's like fabric pots and then raised beds. And if I was really growing for myself, I would just do rows, you know, and I would maximize the space. But you have to teach people different ways they can possibly grow food. So Freetown does a lot of that. And then we donate food to local food banks and stuff like that. We participate with other nonprofits and supply food to them. So it's a nice mix, but it's small. And there's plenty of land and programs to build and do that. Like one of the ideas I have is to have a living food closet where communities grow food and the food just shows up somewhere central and people can come and get it. You know, that would be beautiful. And I know that we can get there. You know, that's kind of what I'm looking for to do with the next 20 years of my life is how do we build these food communities better, you know? So we'll see how we get there. For the food forest, it's just really a concept of looking at the space, and then you have tall trees and stuff that produce nuts and fruit. And then as you come down lower, you might have the bigger bushes and stuff like that. Down lower, you have crops that, you know, cover the ground. Where a lot of shade falls, maybe you start growing mushrooms and stuff in there. So you're really looking at using all the different layers of the canopy going up to the tallest tree, all the way down to the mulch, and how can you fit food into that? And you can get a lot out of a very small space. And it's not really disorganized, but it's set up to be more naturalized so that you have all these pieces going. And over time, whatever is the strongest or the best tends to take hold in that region or in that garden. And you have a place that produces food. You can make them more, I guess, maybe less natural and just do rows of fruit trees. Or you could do layers of this crop and that crop. And you can build that way. But the actual food forest is a really cool concept. And a lot of historical civilizations would find their fruit trees and the things that they like and pull them into a forest or a garden space and grow them there. And they would just grow wild. And that's how they literally would create, you know, a food forest. Or for whatever plants were indigenous to their space, they kind of propagated, not in a formal garden sense, but in let's get them all into this area and let's just let them grow. And then they feed their, you know, community for years, you know, decades.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of homeowners, the whole, I'm trying to bring together the idea of the front lawn, the food forest, and the public feeding people, you know, just sort of on demand with the fresh food thing. And I know for myself, we have a little cherry tree that just overhangs the sidewalk a little bit in the front yard. And it is great to watch people go by and just pick cherries as they walk by, you know. So there's a sense where even in our home gardens, we can do a little bit of front yard design. We can put a blueberry bush out there, raspberry, whatever it is, with this idea, or cherry tomato, whatever. That's this idea. If it's close enough to the sidewalk, people kind of get the idea, like I can graze, or you could even put a sign there that says help yourself to make it very explicit.
Yeah.
But we can be contributing as gardeners, and as if we have a home, or, you know, if we have a rental situation that's favorable, we can be contributing to the public good in that sense too, by offering these crops a little closer to the sidewalk versus a little further away. So it gives people the message like, you're welcome to take some of this abundance. I'm not going to keep up with it anyway. And it's good, healthy, fresh food.
I think, I mean, what you said is sort of, we're not going to be able to keep up with it. Also along that tone, is once you start growing, you can grow crazy amounts of food. Like those cherry tomato trees, maybe right at the end of your property, you can tend it, but you can't keep up with eating it because it produces so much. So why not share it, just like you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll add to that, for me in my garden spaces, I've got alleyways, so I'm growing right along the alleyways, which was inspired by my neighbor who was doing that when I moved here years ago, So again, like Mark's saying, it's really kind of something great to be, it'll kind of catch some folks off guard though too. Sometimes I'll be, they won't be able to see me. I'm on some part of the garden tending, but then I'll look and notice someone walking through and they're picking, something off of there, and I'll pop up and I'm like, hey, and they're like, oh no, sorry. I'm like, no, please, literally take some, have more. I can't consume all of it or use all of it. So it is great to kind of have these more kind of public access in a way if we can. And I think that's a great point, growing things towards the edge so that, folks can kind of reach in. And maybe I should do something like putting up a sign like, hey, have at it, that sort of thing.
That would be wonderful. At the end of my property, if someone's looking for a peach tree, contender peach is a great variety. But right by the road, I have a contender peach, and every other year it produces a crazy amount of peaches, hundreds, and I can't eat them all, and they will start to drop. I've had people actually stop and say, "Can I give you some money, to pick some peaches?"
I've had that too. Yeah,
take whatever you want. But that's the whole idea. Is like, I mean, if you haven't seen a peach tree that has really matured, and it doesn't take long, like mine was 3-year tree when I put it in, within the 5th or 6th year, it was producing great fruit. If you haven't seen how much can come off of a peach tree that's really producing, you're missing out. And if you had a couple of them popped in around the community, people could get free peaches. Now, it's not going to change how much they can eat, but just think of the stories that people have and the memories they get from picking the fruit, sharing it with their kids, talking about where they came from, running into neighbors, just saying, how this peach is great. I can't find it anywhere. Like, that's what we're missing. And I think because of my mental health background, I'm always looking at gardening being greater than just good nutrition. It does so much more for the, heart and soul of people, I think.
Yeah. When I read the first chapter there in your book about taking on the lawn right away, it really made me think of this other book, Edible Estates by Fritz Haig, who is, kind of an architect in LA area. And he did this experiment of replacing people's front lawns with vegetable gardens in different parts of the country, and then just monitoring the results, like what happened. And I have a front lawn garden too. And I agree with him in that being outside in the garden, in that part of the garden, creates all these social opportunities. People are walking by. I get to know my neighbors so much more. And he says the gardener is like almost like a theatrical producer who's and this goes along with your idea of the artist, this, showing the people what is going on, showing the people the cycle of the seasons through the garden. So I think you're right on in that the way we landscape our property is about getting food for ourselves, but it's also about interaction, right?
Yeah, that's one of the big principles with how Chiara founded Community Ecology Institute, is that socializing piece around nature. Like, it is so important and it's so underplayed. But when you see it happening, you realize the immediate impact that it has on people. And I think that's a lot of people don't know they're missing that. They don't know they're missing their connection with nature. And I think it is up to people that know to really help them get exposed to it. Not force it on them, not make them love it, but just expose it, gardens to them, and give them the chance to see if they like it. If you think about, a lot of people spend a lot of time looking for miracles and wanting things, to be amazing. In my hand, I could grab enough seeds that it could produce 10,000 pounds of food. And I can go and plant it. And if you think about the seed holding the code to germinate and grow and create food, if that's not a miracle, like, what is? But we overlook it. We don't appreciate it. We don't embrace it. We want, I don't know. I mean, we want something coming from the skies that say, hey, I'm a miracle. But the garden itself and the ability to grow food and nature is a miracle. Not many
Yeah.
planets that have life on it like we do.
Yeah. Yeah, not many that we know of, right?
Yeah.
We got to take advantage of what we got here. And again, too, it's like I like going back to the idea, about front yards, lawns, and that sort of stuff. I've talked to many gardeners who, that's their purpose in putting out that garden out in the front yard, is to welcome people and to bring people in to draw people in to what they're doing so that they can share that.
Yeah, there's really pretty ways to do it too. Like you can buy just a basic fire ring. If you go to a garden store and you buy a ring for a garden bed, you pay 3 times as much. But if you go to like Tractor Supply and you just buy a simple fire ring, it's a lot less expensive. But you can put that fire ring right down on your front yard, fill it, cardboard down over the grass, fill it with 8 inches of decent soil, put a tomato plant and a stake in there, and just stake that single tomato plant straight up at 6-7 feet tall, manage it nicely. It's going to look perfectly great in your front yard. If you turn the whole front yard into 15 beds and you got dirt everywhere, yeah, it's going to be a little bit rough. I personally like how gardens that aren't in production, like winter gardens, look, but a lot of people don't want to see all the trellising and all that kind of stuff around. But you can build the front yard to look wonderful. In that same fire ring or just a little footprint, you can put in a clumping variety of blackberries, especially along your fence. And they don't go crazy. They don't overtake the space, but you could have these amazing 8-foot canes of big, juicy blackberries that people can come and eat. So you can do it in a way that looks good. That's why, like when the HOA says no gardens, it is a form of discrimination because you're not thinking it through of what they can be and what they can look like. You're just thinking of, I don't know, chaos in whoever wrote its mind or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now is the time to talk about pots and containers, because, people may be prohibiting you from doing something on your front lawn or something, but when you get there's so much, containers offer us so much possibility for beauty and expression. The containers themselves, you can obviously use like an old drawer or whatever you have at hand, but you can also get these gorgeous looking sculpted pots. You can take a terracotta pot and paint it bright colors and create this very festive environment. So containers seem like the access point where everybody can more or less get a container, right?
You definitely you can. And then just, the gardener part of me is I do recommend now trying to get a 10-gallon container or a 20-gallon container for growing bigger plants, because you can start anything small in a small pot, but they get big fast and they dry out. So if you are going to go with container gardening, try and get a 10-gallon container or a 20-gallon container. And just keep in mind, you have to feed and water them more often than the earth. And in those pots, you can use organic, you could use chemical if you want. I know some people aren't comfortable with that. But in containers, it's not an environment where the microbes and layers of earthworms and all that are doing great, because it's a little container. But if it's in your budget, any kind of watering and feeding works. But then you can take that pot, like you're saying, and you can put in a 10-gallon pot 2 or 3 pepper plants. You can get the bigger vegetables in that 20-gallon. You can plant herb pots where the herbs trail down that 10-gallon pot. Cover the pot up even a little bit if you don't have money for anything fancy.
Yeah.
In the dead center, you grow something taller. You can really mix and match. In smaller containers, 5-gallon or so, you can grow all kinds of herbs that are really expensive. When you're trying to buy basil or the different herbs in those little cut plastic boxes, and you're not perpetuating the use of plastic in the grocery store, you're growing your own fresh herbs. So there's so much room, and that's part of what we talk about in the book too, is if you can't grow on the earth, how can you grow in pots? And, you need to know some basic things like I was talking about, but you can grow just about anything in there, really. Just keep in mind, don't overplant, because when your tomato plants are this big, they look nice and cute, and you think you can kind of fit so many into this big space. But come mid-July, they're going to be really tall, and they're going to be sucking the life and the water out of your container.
Well, we live in a good time, because if you look through some seed catalogs, at least a good time for container growing, a lot of breeding has been done to reduce the size of many food plants. So there's lots of stuff that are like ideally suited for containers. That's another, I think, a good point for people to remember, that there's often a variety that's particularly designed for containers, and the seed catalog will usually note that. And you have more success with that than something that's going to be giant and rambling kind of by its nature.
Yeah, really in the long run, we're looking at size when it comes to like the plant itself, or even the types of fruits that it's producing and that sort of thing. And that's where you really want these bigger containers to ensure that you're going to get what you're looking for out of them. There's plenty of things you can grow in smaller ones, like Mark's saying. I've grown these different micro dwarf tomatoes that they've got a couple of these different varieties out. And these things are like perfect for like even little 1 gallon pots if you got them, you know. But then again, we got to stress, like you're saying, Gary, though, too, that, you know, even the smaller the container you get, then becomes even more important, the watering and maintaining them, right?
Yeah, and I think you guys are right. Like, you know, new gardeners, I recommend a 10 or 20. But as you get smaller, your knowledge and history, you're like, oh, this dwarf tomato will fit perfectly, or this dwarf variety of collards will fit. So you want to learn and match the vegetable or the flower or the herb to the pot size, for sure. And that's part of learning. Like when you first start, I would say 50% of what you do can fail.
Yes.
But you're still going to get 50% production. So you're still going to get something out of it. And the learning curve is really quick. Like once you start making mistakes or learning and taking notes and observing, you're going to be able to really correct, you know, issues. And I mean, I still mess up stuff after, you know, 30 years, but you get better and better at fixing it.
No, that's a great, the permission to fail, I think, is very important for new gardeners, right? You have to know that everybody's failing all the time, and a certain amount of your stuff's going to fail. And that's just part of the cycle. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also too, we were talking with Christy Wilhelmi yesterday, and I thought it really does make like the very first good piece of advice you can give a new gardener is just embrace what we would call failures or learning opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely right. Learning opportunities. And it's the first year that you learn so much about how much to water. Do you really need A, B, and C? You know, whatever it is, you're going to learn and you're going to figure it out. I just wanted to show this picture real quick because we were talking about the blackberries. But this is my hand for my property. And that's kind of the example of what an edible landscape is. And when we were talking about what you have on your front lawn, the tomato plants hanging over, that's what I'm really talking about, is where you can walk the property, walk your neighborhood, and then you just have a handful of something you picked. It's delicious, it's enjoyable, and you know that just goes to everything we were already talking about. But that's it. You know, is you can walk, you can pick some fruit, you can pick some vegetables, eat them as you're going, and move on, you know.
Yeah, how awesome is that?
I don't know, Enoch, if you've ever had this guy Eric Tonesmeyer on, but he's an expert in edible. And he did this thing, I think, called Edible Acre. I can't remember. He and his buddy in Massachusetts tried to design a garden, but the goal was they would have 2 handfuls of fresh fruit or berries every single day for as long as they could. So oh my God, it's every time I'm out there, like I have a full hand of blueberries in my fist from my blueberry plant. I'm thinking of him. I'm like, okay, if I could just get 2, I've met my Tonesmeyer goal for the day. If I get
it.
And it's a great little goal. I think it's a great little target.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. And for me though, too, is I'm not the best at like food preservation. I'm not the best cook and all of that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you what, the one thing I do love about a great garden with a bunch of diversity in plants and types of varieties that I have is grazing. You know, getting out there and just picking and eating and picking and eating. Sometimes I don't even need to worry about getting into the kitchen because I've filled myself up plenty from just what I've got growing outdoors fresh.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And the other thing too is as you're walking and you're picking, you're not thinking about bills and life stress.
Yes.
You know, you're not sitting in the couch. Anytime you're sitting on a couch, we're not usually thinking great things. We're usually ruminating over stressors. But if you're out in a garden and you're looking for that ripe blueberry or that ripe blackberry, or you're looking for that ripe piece of spinach if it's earlier in the season, you're just so focused in just being in tune with the taste of the food, the look of the food, the sound around you. It's just great on many levels. And I do that all the time. I'm always, and it's funny you said 2 handfuls. Like I'm always looking for what did I eat out of the garden today, quantity wise, outside, not what I brought inside, but outside. And I can almost do that from April to middle of October, once stuff is rolling in. Of course, I got to eat a ton of spinach for the several weeks, but once it becomes a little bit more diverse, it's a little more exciting.
Exactly.
Let's talk about plant palette a little bit, because one thing that I've just been seeing a few interesting things go in the comments. There is, again, like we live at a great time in that we have access to plants from all over the world that can grow in our climate and provide food. Somebody, I think Darth there mentioned the feijoa, the pineapple guava, which is a favorite of mine. And my sister-in-law is a feijoa nut. I mean, she's gone just down the rabbit hole with feijoas. But that's an example of a food plant that, maybe 10 years ago, I hadn't even heard of, pineapple guava. And then there's, another, I'm growing like this perennial kind of kale, perennial collards, tree collards, that again, like maybe 10 years ago, I hadn't really heard much about that. So talk about these interesting little fruits and vegetables that we have that are perennials that everybody knows what a blackberry and a blueberry is, but what about a feijoa? What are some interesting things that you're experimenting with?
So, I mean, it's tough because each garden climate or zone could be different things, but you can move from the blackberries, the raspberries, and the blueberries to red currants. That's a enjoyable plant, grows really well. Don't like the black currants; they taste terrible. Just because it's edible doesn't mean you want it. But
right, exactly.
You got the red currants. Gooseberries are really nice. Fig trees are really nice. These are all things going back to that earlier question of what can you put on your property. Chicago hardy figs do great. Celosia you can eat as an alternative to leafy greens. Not every variety tastes great, but they're all edible. So you can start looking for annual flowers that come, like you were saying, from different parts of the world and introduce them into your garden. The vegetables that we have, they're so popular because they grow well, they taste well, we're used to them, but you can really start adding in so much more. Even now it's pretty common, but the Asian cabbages and the Asian food that really, pak choi, bok choy, that enjoy all the cool weather crop, that was literally foreign to us, decades back.
Right, exactly.
It got introduced, and they're wonderful now, and now we accept them. So it is a matter of looking around, but that's the beauty of seed catalogs, because when you're gardening, you can just go through the entire globe, all the countries, and find things that are, matched to your zone, and order them, plant the seeds, and you get some really amazing stuff. I really like the Asian cabbage because my season's a little messed up. It gets warm too quick, but the Asian cabbages grow really fast. I can harvest them better, and they survive the winter here better. So sometimes I can extend them deep into our winter. But you're always looking for, things like that.
You're gardening in Maryland, is that right? I mean, I know right now you're in the garden state of New Jersey, but your garden is in Maryland, is that right?
I'm in Maryland, yeah, and it's similar to Jersey. Jersey is a little bit colder, but we can grow from mid-March into November, so we have a long growing season. We get pretty harsh Januaries and Februarys, so you can't really, tummy your way through and grow food because the ground gets too cold. But it's a long growing season. I mean, that's the other strategy too, is we have a long growing season. So I'm doing cool crops, spring, warm crops, and then cool crops again. But some places only have 3 months, so there's really a need for those individuals to do transplants and grow in high tunnels and low tunnels and stuff like that. So you're going to have different challenges. But with the different challenges, you can also bring in different foods from, different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's amazing what's available.
Yeah, and bringing it back to the book here, though, too, real quick here is that for all of you out there who are looking for ideas and different things and all of that, they put in some really good suggestions, tables that you put in here, with all sorts of different growing tips and all of that, and some different profiles. on different types of plants and things that you could grow. You were mentioning the celosia. There's, good profiles on goji berries, different things like that throughout this book, which really, really makes it really great for folks if you, are trying to figure out what could you grow just outside of what you would, normally grow in a garden.
Yeah, you should always start with what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And then the book does create, it gives you those tables of other things you could think about. It also breaks garden themes down. Like there's a tea garden and different things. So maybe you don't have the space or you don't have the time, but you love tea. You can grow all kinds of leafy herbs in containers in less sunshine, and you can have an amazing tea garden. And it's going to give you nutrients, and it's going to give you, valuable food because you're using whole leaves and stuff in there. So there really is so much you can do.
Yeah, I love that. Even you have a section. Obviously, the herbs are amazing for anybody who wants to cook and elevate their cooking, make salad dressings. If you just had fresh herbs, that would be enough, right? That could be good. Mm-hmm. The whole edible flowers table you give is wonderful because those can just dress up. I mean, they're tasty and they're cool, but they're bright and they're celebratory. I've put them on chocolate cakes, like these pansies on chocolate cakes, and it's just so fun to have that. It really is like being an artist. You feel like you've got a big palette of things to work with when you prepare your food, and you can use them as garnishes, edible garnishes. It's just fun to have some of these things around,
Yeah, and some of the things people don't realize, like when you talk about processed food and empty calories, sometimes people get confused of what that is. That's really food that's so processed that the beneficial chemical compounds aren't in that food. Like white flour, still flour, but there's nothing of value in there. When you're putting in tea leaves or growing your own tea, or you're putting in flowers, not only is it just fun to do, but you're eating chemical compounds that we have grown up on for hundreds of thousands of years. So you're really adding to the value or you're really adding to your health by bringing in nutrients in different forms that we've just learned not to eat. We'll love that chocolate icing on the cake and eat all of that. But once you start adding in the flowers, it doesn't offset, maybe the chocolate icing. But using it in your salads and in your dressing and stuff like that, you are getting, valuable compounds into your body.
And it's just plain fun. I mean, you like going to somebody's birthday party with a cake that's now all covered in edible flowers. Everybody, you're going to be the star of the show. It's like everyone's going to be talking about that cake. It's something they will remember. It's something unique. It's not like you just go to your big box grocery store and buy a cake out of a box. This is something you made from your own garden. It's very personalized and really amazing.
Yeah, and you break the barrier for those people that have never seen or thought about that before. Now they have a memory of, hey, you know what? I can grow and eat flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a concept of that years ago until I met with went down to the Urban Homestead down in Los Angeles, and they were packaging and selling up just this massive variety of these beautiful flowers as edible flowers, and it just really kind of opened my mind to all of that. And that's something that's kind of important for gardeners to think about, is that it isn't just some of these traditional things that we think about, that there's a lot of really cool stuff out there that's edible.
Yeah, and you can fit it into so many different spaces. You just take the time to learn and read and, talk with people, and you can really build an edible landscape that fits your liking and your climate.
Yeah. And one of the other things I really like too here in the book as well too is again, and I'll just highlight it with the one where you're talking about, as Mark was mentioning, herbs and all of that. You do. There's just lots of different ways to be creative.
Yeah.
In how you're doing your spaces, kind of going back to the idea of thinking of them like rooms, and how you design something a little different from other things and stuff. But you got things in here like the herb spiral, these earth beds, these different things like that. But maybe talk about some of these creative aspects of what you can do within your edible landscape.
Yeah, so you sort of create the architecture, the stuff that isn't growing in your space. I love trellising. There's a picture in my book of the snow on a bunch of trellises. Like, that is beneficial to me. I love the way that looks. With like the herb spiral, you're really, even though it's not that tall, I mean, it can get up to 4 feet tall. You're creating this spiral that goes down, and you're planting on the different levels. If you're in an area where frost comes down or cold weather comes down and it hangs at 2 feet above your garden, the crops that you're growing in that 3-4 foot are protected from that cold that goes to your area. So you can use it in a way to grow a little bit more, or start a little bit early, or grow a little bit longer. But the herb spiral is just a nice piece of architecture. It could be stone. People make it out of cinder block. They use stones, and you just plant your way up it. Usually it's herbs, but you can finish the center off with the centerpiece or something like that of something.
Edible flowers.
Edible. You could do flowers all the way up. I mean, there's just a whole lot you can do. So when you're looking in your yard and you're looking in your space and you have points of interest, an herb spiral is, really nice. Even mounds, almost, you don't have to do hugelkultur, but if you want to do a big mound somewhere, you can plant sort of like, not necessarily like a layered approach, but you can have a mound that is a centerpiece, and you just kind of work your way up it, maybe flowers up top, food down on the bottom. It becomes a centerpiece, and it looks, really beautiful. Not necessarily a food forest, but you do have layers on it, and you can use that as a centerpiece.
Another way again too is we're getting ready to hiding those things into your garden spaces, like for your HOAs and stuff. Put some nice flowers, edible flowers, even around some cool food stuff like that. I think that's just great.
Yeah, but if you could even put on the top of it, if you want to put ornamental bushes, you could do that and fool everybody. But everything below that, if you're putting in beets and carrots and radishes, that's just going to look like undergrowth, low-growing plant. People aren't going to know, but now you have all this space, with the centerpiece of flowers or whatever you want to put in there, but you have all this stuff growing underneath: lettuce, spinach, carrots, turnips, beets. You can transfer over to bush beans at some point, because clustered beans look like an ivy anyway, like a color, a green color across the space. So there's really a lot that you can do. And you're always moving plants in and out and changing it up and stuff like that. You just need some sort of growing space, and then you get some practice in there.
Yeah, tell us about editing and evolving your space. Like once you make a start, whatever it is, you claim a little area, you get going. What's your thoughts on how it matures, how it goes through the years, how your own approach to editing and taking things out, adding things, changing things up?
Yeah. So I'm going to be 60 this year. So one thing that I edit is my body. So less getting down on the ground and getting lower is a change. So I do have more raised beds, but you may change things up for health reasons or mobility reasons. So that's one reason. Also, as you learn more and get more interest, and maybe you learn about currants or gooseberries or goji berries, you might want to be swapping in and out different plants. Or you find something might be a little bit too invasive, or it grew too big. Like I have plenty of dwarf fruit trees, that were supposed to be dwarf, and they end up way too big. And it right where the roots and the stem meet, I haven't covered that over. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. So you do have to pull things out that maybe get too big, or maybe they just don't do well. Like you put something more in a place that gets more water runoff. Like goji berries don't like really wet soil. And I have them on a slanted area, 3 of them. I removed 2, but the one that was on top of the space gets huge because it drains better. The ones that got water to them don't do well, so I pull it out. So you may be changing things based on sort of the environment, what happens on your property, or years down the line, you may have trees that have grown and shaded out something that used to get full sun. So you're transitioning over more to a shadier or less sun hours for that place. It is always hard, as it is for most gardeners, to thin out seedlings, first of all. But when you do it, it's like, okay, it's done. It's also hard sometimes to make big changes, but you feel so much better once you just rip out what you don't want. The excitement comes back to plant something new. So it can be hard, I understand, to thin seedlings and to prune and remove things, but just try and, get through it and make the changes. I mean, you're just going to find, every 5 years, I kind of reassess my garden and my beds and what do I want to keep? What do I want to change? What do I want to simplify? And, just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, that's I like your point about, what do you really actually like to eat and use? Because I find myself going through all these cycles constantly. Read something in a seed catalog, read something in a fruit tree or shrub catalog, think, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing ever. Get it, let it mature a little bit, try it, be like, I'm not that excited about it.
Right.
And then you maybe live with it for a few years, like, I put it in, whatever. And then eventually be like, I'm ripping that thing out because I'm not using it and I want to put something in that I actually like.
Rhubarb is a good example. It took me, I don't remember, but about 3 years to find the right place to grow it. I was putting it in a place, and I get at some point when everything's aligned, almost like 12 hours of sun. So I was putting it in a place that was getting way too much sun, and it would just die off. It didn't work. And I thought, well, rhubarb, it needs, 10 hours of sun. Well, I slowly moved from my most intense sunny areas to where my shed is. And I can't remember when it gets the light, but for point, it gets about 6 or 8 hours of sun.
Yeah.
And the rhubarb is doing amazingly well just because I shifted it. So sometimes when you're changing up your place is that you just put it in the wrong place. You might still like it. You have to go find that right combination of sunlight versus too much sun, because too much sun can be a problem too. When your soil heats up too much and warms up the roots, that can be a problem too. So you sometimes have to move your stuff because you just put it in the wrong place. And rhubarb now, amazing. I mean, it's getting bigger and bigger. I have to divide it. Perfect location. And now it's growing well.
Well, that first, you list some permaculture points, and the first one you list, I think is just important for all of us as gardeners to keep at, is observe and interact. So gardening is really a constant process of observing and then eventually trying to figure out why things are the way we observe them to be. This one plant is doing good, but these two are not. They're all the same plant. Why? I'm observing the difference, and then I'm starting to wonder, is it light? Is it heat? Is it water? Is it fertility? All these things that we can wonder about, but just constantly observing.
It makes a big difference. And the observation and the experimentation is what I really enjoy. So on a side note, I have mammoth sunflowers and sunflowers. Birds eat them. The seeds go everywhere. The best and strongest sunflowers I have are ones that nature basically seed.
Yeah.
And they will start creeping up in April when the ground is still cold. When they first break the surface, they can even manage a frost. People don't realize that. But those sunflowers end up being spectacular because they've grown nice big root systems. They only have a little bit of green growth waiting for the right warmth and all that. But whenever I try to start sunflowers in little pots and do the transfer, they just never take off. So some of these plants that you're looking at are better if they're self-seeded, or they're better if left alone. You don't have to over baby them. But beans and sunflowers, and even my tomatoes that self-seed and grow a little bit later than all the ones I fuss with and get in early, they end up taking off. They're better resistant with diseases and pests because they just have a better, I think, established root system, and they're just healthier and stronger plants. So you're thinking about that too. It's like, you also don't want to overwork the soil, or you're can I just leave this alone? Can I just hit it with compost, in spring, and it's good? And you just kind of learn as you go.
Yeah. Well, man, I can't believe it. Here we are. Where did the time go? We say this every time. It's unbelievable. It's such a great conversation. So much we're learning here today. I do want to finish up with just one quick question here. I know David's been putting in some really awesome questions for us. So I want to finish up with this just one little last question here. Gary, how does thinking in seasons help keep an edible landscape producing food throughout the year?
That is a really good question. And it's going to vary where you are. And like we were saying, in Maryland, I have a long season. So the first thing I'm thinking about is, what do I need to start indoors to get 6 weeks? And then what are the first plants into my garden? So that's what I'm really thinking here. What are the first plants? Peas, carrots, radishes. So I have a little bit of a plan that way. As things warm, I'm thinking, what are the next crops to direct seed? Or what do I need to start 4 or 6 weeks early? So I'm kind of looking at each season as a little, not really a room, what's the right word? It's just a little compartment of the whole growing season. So for me, the first part is cool crops. And then it quickly warms up. So then it's the warm crops. And then for me, I'm also looking at succession planting. So for an edible garden, you don't want to just put all your zooks and squash out May 1st, and then the vine borer comes and wrecks them all. You want to have a plan of first squash and zucchini plant, 4 weeks later, plant new seeds, 4 weeks later, maybe some new seeds. So you're succession planting your crops that are, annuals and edibles so that they continue to grow through the pest and disease cycles. Like, once you get to the end of our season, the vine borer is gone. So the squash and zucchini do really well. You're also thinking about, for blueberries, you want early season, mid-season, late season. So you're looking at the blooming times and the ripening times of fruit trees and fruit bushes and stuff like that, so that you have a general plan that, April is this, May is this, June is this. And then, come the fall, I'm starting into my fall garden. So you're looking at your timeline of temperatures and figuring out what to drop into there.
Excellent. Right on. Well, again, everybody, this is such a wonderful conversation today. Thank you so much, Gary. And you'll have to pass along a huge thank you to your co-author as well, too. And for everybody in the chat or watching the replay and all of that, we do got links for you to get yourself a copy of An Edible Landscape. You can probably find a link as well, too. Maybe drop in and get one of Gary's other book, too, The Modern Homestead Garden. So, again, a couple of really great books. Really, really amazing conversation today, Gary. Thank you so much for spending your time to be with us here for our monthly book club this month.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. I loved what you had to say, and thanks again for as we were talking about before. When you write a book, you love the idea, you hate the actual work, and then you love it in the end. And thanks for doing this, because this can then go on to inspire lots of us. So thank you.
Yep, for sure.
All right. We'll be right back in just one moment. We'll finish this up.
Okay.
Hey, gardeners. Thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible feature visits. All right. Wow. What a great conversation, man. So much to know.
I think we really hit on some important things in not only how we can transform our lives, but really, like, there's a bigger social fabric that we hit on today, which always feels exciting to feel some hope, in terms of, as gardeners, what can we do that's hopeful? And of course, we, as Gary was saying, just getting out in the garden is mentally beneficial, right? It's his mental health therapy background taught him that. But then when we can start to imagine, like, how can with our skills, this is something we can do. This is our chance to step up to the plate with our skill set. We can help feed our neighbors. We can help make our neighborhoods better places. We can help people have these cool memories of growing up in a neighborhood where they could go pick an incredible peach at a certain time and talk to their neighbors about it. So this is actually, we don't have to despair about, I can't do anything to make society better. The problems are too big. It's like, no, they're not actually. It's like happening right out your front door. What you're putting on the sidewalk, you are actually making the world better by giving people blueberries. It's like a healthy food that is helping improve their health.
Yeah, very actionable things that we can do ourselves individually that, that really, can just reach out and do so much, like getting involved with your community and doing things right from your own front yard. How easy can it be just to really have a big effect on things, right?
I love that stuff because, we're so individualized already. We're so much in our little cells. It's great when you can break out. And of course, as Gary mentioned that his collaborator Kiara had that insight. It's like the social interaction belongs in nature. We're positioned to do that. So everybody got to go out there, and this is our way to heal the world. We got our marching orders today.
That's right. That's right. So again, everybody, go follow the links down below. Get yourself a copy of their book, Growing an Edible Landscape. So again, what another, we just all the time, every single month, we seem to just get better and better at some of these great books and all of that too. And this one just really is just awesome.
Yeah. It's just like being in the zone, right? It's like we pull out of these conversations. It's like, how did the time go? It was so engaging. I felt so present to that conversation, and I'm grateful to Gary for helping to facilitate that with all his knowledge and his wisdom that he shared with us.
Yeah. It's at these times I wish the show was another hour longer or something. We could just keep on going and going, but
disappear these topics and wake up and
Exactly.
the next day it's like, whoa, what happened? We just
Exactly. I love it. Well, that also means now that we've finished up this month's gardening book club, we've got another one to look forward to, and that's why we hang out to the end of the show so that we can hear about who we've got coming up next. And I'm really excited about this next guest that we're going to have on for next month's book club, because I went and tried to go and do a visit with her several years ago, and had an issue come up and I had to cancel last minute. And now ever since we've been trying to line things up to get them right. And we just got it right for this next month. So our April selection for the monthly gardening book club is going to be Emily Murphy. We're going to have Emily Murphy from Pass the Pistol on Instagram, as well as author of a couple of other books. But we're going to be featuring her book, Grow Now. Yeah, go beyond organic, rewild your land, sequester carbon, and support biodiversity. I'm really, really excited about getting together and hanging out with Emily for this one. This is going to be another fun monthly gardening book club selection for us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great segue to what we talked about today. And I will say that I heard Emily a few years ago at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show talking about that book. And I was just very excited by what she had to offer at that time. So I think it's once again going to be a great conversation with a real leader in the field, giving us very practical things to do to make the world a better place through gardening.
Yeah. So much we can do. It's such a, again, like talking today and everything, getting into the community aspect, but also the environmental aspect of what we're doing and contributing through our garden spaces and all of that, connection of nature, the mental health support we get, just so many benefits of growing a garden. And it's just really going to be really great to catch up with her and find out all about what she's got in that book, Grow Now. I got my copy coming, so I can't wait to start digging in real soon. And
I got nothing to show because mine's on order too. But it's like usually I don't have it yet, but pretty soon I'll have it in my hands.
We'll have it in our hands real soon. And again, too, that'll be the third Sunday of April. I believe it's April 16th is what I'm thinking.
Sounds right.
Sounds about right. I don't get the exact date right, but definitely know it's the third Sunday of the month. And you can find us here for the monthly Sunday edition, the monthly gardening book club. So again, thank you, Mark, for hanging out with us.
Gosh, I'd be doing this, but I'd be doing this on my own. I'd be looking through books and stuff, but I wouldn't be doing it as well. I wouldn't have as much fun as doing it with you. And then these guest authors just blow me away every time. I can't believe the privilege of being able to talk to these people, leaders, thought leaders, practice leaders, just doing incredible stuff. And we get to sit with them for an hour, a little bit more each month, and just get mine their wisdom. It's just to me, it's a privilege. It's a great
That's what I'm
privilege.
telling you. If you haven't yet already, you want to subscribe. You want to be notified. You
Yeah.
want to be finding out about not just our monthly gardening book club, but we're here every weekend, 3 days a week, talking with some of the most amazing garden growers, communicators, and as I've been saying lately, because you gave me the word last time we had you on the show, but these garden luminaries that we get to talk to here right on the Let's Get Growing show. You're not going to find this anywhere else in the gardening community. So definitely be hitting that subscribe button.
Yeah, these are the bright lights, and Enoch, you do a great job attracting all the bright lights. So your program is amazing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, everybody, come and join with us again for our next month's gardening book club. And I'll see you then as well too, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this show here real quick, and we'll catch you afterwards.
Okay. See you next month, everybody. Tell your friends, bring more people.
Let's do it. All right. Here we are. Let's finish this up again. Another wonderful, awesome, amazing show here on the Let's Get Growing show, our monthly gardening book club. And again, go check out the links down below. Get yourself a copy of Growing an Edible Landscape by Gary Pilarchik and Chiara Diamore. So definitely get yourself a copy of that. You're not going to regret it. It's got such awesome stuff to transform your spaces around your home into edible landscapes. Awesome. And so we got lots coming up here again too. We got more, like I said, you're not going to find a show like this with so many awesome folks that you get to that we get to talk with and have conversations. And not only that, you guys get to join with us live to ask questions and be a part of the conversation too. So again, like I said, we're here 3 days a week, and that means we'll be finishing up tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for another episode of The Green Room with our good friend Natalie from the Fresh Princess. This tomorrow night, we've got joining with us Jessica from Dream to Seed, as well as Chad from Down Home Backyard Gardening. And going to have a great conversation with them, along with Natalie, the Fresh Princess. It's just going to be really fun. We have such a fun time on this new show. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check out The Green Room, definitely come and check that out. We've got Katrina from Sow and Tear in our Grow What You Eat segment as well too. So definitely come and join with us for that. And then next week on the show, next Saturday for our regular Saturday show, we have joining with us Grant Meekhorst. The Gardening Grant will be with us back again, talk about flower gardening and all sorts of other gardening. Grant's such a great personality. I just had a great time talking with him last time he was on the show, so we'll have him back on this next Saturday as well. We'll be back for our Sunday edition next week. Sunday edition of the show we've got coming back again. They come back every couple months to come hang out with us. It's our good friend Christopher Bransdahl joining us from the mountains of Norway in his really cool grow room that he's got up there, and all the awesome, amazing things he can grow. Plus King Star from the Pepper Lovers community and the King Star channel on YouTube. King and Christopher, good friends. They've been my original live stream cohorts here on the Urban Gardener channel. And in fact, they when I first started bringing them on, we were doing these first day of spring live streams, and we've got them back again because it's going to be the first day of spring coming up this week. So we'll have them here this next Sunday, and definitely come and join with us tomorrow night for the Green Room. Like I said, I'll let you know who we got coming up next week for the Green Room as well. So thank you everybody for being here with us today. It was so great to have you here. And if you can, before you head out, let's go ahead and click that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, share with all your friends, let them know about the Let's Get Growing show. And like I said, follow all of our links down below in the description. And got lots more in store for you coming up here on the Let's Get Growing show. So I'll see all of you for the Green Room. So we'll see you then.
back of the run. See you on the flippy flops.